Hi everyone, my name is Karen, this is my channel RatherBeReading, and today I'm bringing to you my November wrap-up. So I managed to read a total of 17 books in the month of November, which I am really happy with, although I did read 11 books in the first half of November, which were covered in my November mid-month wrap-up, which I will leave linked down below. So I do wish that I could have read a little bit more in the second half of the month, but I am still really happy with getting 17 things read this month. So as I said, I covered the first 11 in my mid-month wrap-up, so I will just be going over the 6 things that I read from the 16th through the 30th of November. The first book that I read in the second half of November was Ruin and Rising by Leigh Bardugo. So I finally finished off this Grisha trilogy, and I loved this trilogy. This book was just as good as the previous two. I absolutely loved it. I definitely 100% recommend this trilogy. It's one of the best trilogies I think that I've ever read, so I definitely recommend picking it up. I cannot wait to pick up Six of Crows, which is set in the same world, because I've heard people saying who didn't enjoy the Grisha trilogy maybe that much that this that Six of Crows is even better than this, so I'm so excited to read that. And yeah, I definitely loved this last installment. I did have a couple of minor problems with the end part of the book, but nothing major, just very small things, and I just totally loved this, and I gave this 5 stars. The second book that I picked up is Vampire Kisses by Ellen Schreiber. This book is the first book in a series. It follows a girl who lives in a small town who is a goth girl, and she is obsessed with vampires, and then a new family with a new boy moves into the big kind of creepy mansion in town. I didn't really enjoy this book. I wasn't sure whether I would enjoy this going in, and as I said, I really didn't. I don't know if it's partly because I think I'm a little bit too old for this. Obviously I'm 27 years old and I read young adult and I enjoy young adult, but this is kind of at a lower level of young adult. It is very juvenile in my opinion, and I just didn't enjoy it. Some parts of it just seemed completely ridiculous to me, ridiculous. The characters were very two-dimensional. There was no depth to the story. I just really didn't enjoy it. And as I said, this is the first book in a series. I believe it's a 9-book series. I very rarely don't finish series, but I'm just not going to go any further with this series because I just really didn't enjoy this first book. I ended up giving this 2 stars. Next, I picked up 172 Hours on the Moon by Johan Harstad. I was really excited for this going in, as I'd heard a lot of good things about this, and unfortunately I was a little bit disappointed. I did still enjoy it, don't get me wrong, but I just think I'd built it up to be quite a big, exciting book in my mind, and so I was a little bit disappointed by it. It definitely has some real creepy vibes, which I appreciated. It's a real kind of slow build-up of tension, which I thought was really well done. I did, however, find parts of the story a little bit hard to believe, and the characters fell a little flat for me, but I did still enjoy it. As I said, I ended up giving this one 3.75 stars. Next, I picked up The Casket Girls by Alice Arden. This is a book that I was approved for on NetGalley, so thank you to NetGalley and the publishers for approving me to read this one. This is a book that is set in Louisiana, in New Orleans, and it follows a girl, Adele, who is returning to Louisiana, New Orleans, after there has been a massive storm, the biggest storm that anyone has ever seen. The entire area has been evacuated, and she's returning after this big storm, and some kind of weird things start happening when she returns to New Orleans. And I don't want to say too much more than that, because I do think it is the kind of story that it's really nice to kind of go in and just discover everything for yourself. I was quite excited going into this. When I requested it, I hadn't heard anything about it. It just sounded interesting to me, but I have seen a few people talk about it on BookTube a little bit since then, so I was excited to pick it up. I really did enjoy this book, but it did seem a little bit all over the place at the same time. I enjoyed the characters, but there's kind of a love triangle in this book, and the feelings that our main character Adele had towards the character Nico, I didn't really get it. I liked Nico, and if it was me, I would probably be all over Nico too, but I just didn't understand how her feelings, like why her feelings were so strong for him so quickly. Like it was a bit insta-lovey to me. Like she really didn't know him that well and hadn't spent that much time with him. So that kind of bothered me a little bit. I also, the storm in the story plays a massive part at the beginning. Like it's very like kind of lengthy and takes up a big kind of chunk of the book, and I just didn't know that that was entirely necessary because this is quite a long book. It's like more than 500 pages. So yeah, I just didn't think that was entirely necessary either. I did really enjoy this book. Kind of deals with kind of some voodoo aspects, and I really discovered how much I really enjoy voodoo aspects, and I don't think I've read it a lot. So if you have any recommendations of books that contain voodoo, I would love to hear them. Just comment down below. I'd love to hear about them. But yeah, I did enjoy this book, but I thought it could be improved in some areas, and I ended up giving this one 3.5 stars. I will just say though that this book has one of the best book trailers that I've ever seen. It's a really great book trailer. I will link that down below for you guys to check out. Next, I picked up Sweet Damage by Rebecca James. This is a book that I picked up to fulfill the challenge of reading a book based entirely on its cover. So I went to my library and I liked this cover, so I picked it up knowing absolutely nothing about it. I didn't read the synopsis, I've never heard of it before, I just picked it up. And I decided to kind of test the waters. I don't like when synopses give a lot away. I've discussed that in my Tuesday Talks video, but I decided for the first time ever to not read the synopsis right before I read it. Normally I read the synopsis in full right kind of as I'm picking the book up, but I didn't do that in this case, just to kind of see how I enjoyed it. And I actually enjoyed that. There's a couple of things about this book that I didn't expect. First, like kind of from the cover, I expected this to have a female protagonist. It doesn't. It has a male protagonist, so that was a nice surprise. And this is also by an Australian author, which I also didn't know. And so I appreciate that. I am from Australia, so I enjoy supporting Australian authors. This book follows a main character, Tim, who is looking to move out. He's kind of come back from overseas and he's been staying with an ex-girlfriend and her new boyfriend, which is a bit awkward. And so he's looking for a house to stay in, and he finds a house to live in with this girl in this huge mansion, but this girl has agoraphobia and she doesn't leave the house, and so he moves in with her, and like it's kind of a weird situation, and then there's like a few weird things going on in the house. I really enjoyed this book. It is a very fast-paced, kind of gripping book that I read this in a morning, like in a couple of sittings. I like kind of got up and had some toast and then came back and read some more, and then I think I had a shower and then I came back and read some more, but I finished this in like half a day. It's very easy to read and I did really enjoy it. I ended up giving this one 4 stars, but just be warned, there are definitely trigger warnings in this for anxiety, depression, and agoraphobia. So just be aware of that going in, but I definitely really enjoyed this and I would recommend picking it up if it sounds like something you might enjoy. And the final book I read in November was Cry of the Cat by Emily Rodda. This is the 4th book in the Teen Power Inc. series, which I have been reading this month. This was exciting because this is actually the first one that I really remember from my childhood. Like I remembered this story quite clearly, so that was really enjoyable. This one is narrated by Elmo, one of the Teen Power Inc. gang, and it follows kind of the story that a lot of cats in their town have been going missing. A lot of lost cat ads are turning up in the newspaper, and it's them kind of delving into that situation. I really enjoyed this one. I ended up giving this one 3.5 stars, and yeah, it was just an enjoyable kids read. So those are the final 6 books that I read in November. Like I said, I had a really decent reading month in November. I would love to chat to you guys in the comments below if you've read any of these books, what your thoughts are, or what you guys read in November. I have a lot of books that I'm hoping to get to in December, so stay tuned for my December TBR. But please like this video if you liked it. Please subscribe if you want to see more. But that's all I've got for this video today. Bye, guys.